How you doing, guys? I'm Adrian Tepaz, and if you've seen my channel before, if you've seen my streams before, this is probably not a surprise. You knew this was coming. So, just for a little context, I have a bit of a history with playing a certain Ninja Turtles game for a decent chunk of my life, admittedly, called Turtles in Time. And I focus primarily on doing one credit clears for the arcade version of Turtles in Time. And I have a pretty extensive playlist right here on this channel, as well as a bunch of videos on my Twitch that showcase those 1CCs. We got a new game announced here. A friend of mine just put me on to this video. You know who you are. And I just had to I had to say something. I had to say something about it because it is clearly intended to target a market of players such as myself that grew up with the old Turtles game. So there's a reveal trailer here. I'm gonna be going over part of it, a part of it that's relevant. I'm just gonna play it here real quick. About half of this is like an animation, and the other half is the gameplay trailer, which actually I think it hits a sweet spot of how a trailer should be. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. A game by Tribute. Okay, so I'm gonna pause it right there. So, real quick before we get into the gameplay here, I did want to comment on some things that I noticed. Also, it looks like I was a bit wrong. It wasn't half of the video that was gameplay. I wish it was half. It just going by that by the animated intro, it did seem like there is a possibility of maybe having more playable characters besides just these four right here. I would absolutely be down for that. There is nothing anywhere that says that a Ninja Turtles game has to be restricted to only these four. Of course, we've seen this many years ago in a fighting game, the Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, where of course you can play these four, but there's a whole bunch of other characters you can play as. Strangely enough, Splinter, not one of them. Not really sure what that was about, but Splinter very prominently shown here in the intro, and as well as April O'Neil. Among others that could be potential characters. So I know we saw a Triceraton in there. Definitely something that is, if not at launch, maybe potential DLC. You know, who knows? But I would love to see more than just these four. But if it's just these four, as long as the mechanics are great, that's still 4 playable characters. So that's still getting a lot of bang for your buck. Talk about the sprites. Look at these sprites. What do you guys think? What do you think of these sprites? I personally think they look fantastic. I love the individuality that the turtles are given here. That was definitely something that I very much appreciated out of Turtles in Time, going from the first Turtles arcade game where the turtles didn't really look. I mean, they looked distinct to a point, but you know, other than Mikey, they didn't really stand out a whole lot from each other. In Turtles in Time, they kind of gave it a bit more of that spice. So every turtle looks quite different in their stance. Um, they actually look even more different in these stances that they have right now. Like Raph is leaning forward, gritting his teeth. He's ready to go. You know, Raph is you know, he's a hot headed. He's definitely like more of a rush down in your face sort of personality. So I think they communicate that very well. Um, Leo, um, Leo can kind of take almost any kind of stance with his dual katanas, but like what I see here, like just from his facial expression, he's got a very serious tone, but he's like composed. He's composed and focused on what he's looking at, and he's got a bit of an offensive and defensive stance going, right? Where he just seems like kind of centered. He's not like leaning towards one way or another. And Mikey, of course, he's got a big goofy smile on his face. Of course, he always does. He's got a stance that makes uh, no real practical sense in martial arts. I mean, he's putting he's putting all his weight on his back leg, spinning his nunchuck around, which doesn't give him any clear benefit. Strangely, not holding the other pair in his left hand. So yeah, he's just communicated really well that he's a goofball. And then Don, of course, got his bow. So it's basically just a standard bow stance. Also has a bit of a mean look on his face. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks kind of, it's a little humorous, but he's got a bit of a mean look. And Don, of course, he's a bit more on the serious side, but you can see he is actually it is sort of like a defensive stance, kind of. He's not like Raph is leaning forward. Don definitely looks like he's more on the defensive side. So if we look at the gameplay, I'm actually just gonna let the gameplay footage just play out normal speed, and then I'm gonna actually express my thoughts and my observations with slowed down speed. So just go ahead and play that. All right, let's go back. So it wasn't a whole lot. For some reason, I thought it was more that they were showing us. But yeah, it wasn't a whole lot. But given my history with the classic Turtles arcade titles, especially Turtles in Time, there's definitely quite a bit you can make out from this trailer, even given that they only really showed us about 20 or less seconds of gameplay. So let's go ahead and slow this down. So right here, first thing I notice, they all have run animations, right? And in this scene here, they're just walking. So run is in, of course. That was an addition to Turtles in Time. They could walk as well as run. So now we have run, which means the possibility of run specific attacks becomes open to us. In Turtles in Time, there are only two buttons. There's jump and attack. But the turtles themselves actually have a wide range of attacks. They have like I forget how many in total, but it's definitely over 10 different attacks that they have. And these attacks are generally context sensitive, so that possibility becomes open here. Another thing that is not present in Turtles in Time that is added to this game, if you look at them closely, they have different run speeds. So Mikey is faster, Don is slower, and it looks like Leo and Raph are even in speed. So that means Mikey is the fastest character on the ground. Also has the goofiest run animation. And besides the fact that, you know, they're just trying to differentiate the turtles here just to give, you know, some more flavor to the different playstyles that they might have, it also factors into their personalities, right? So Mikey is generally depicted, if you look at like the cartoons, he's generally depicted as more speedy as compared to the other turtles. It's probably not a point that they focus on too much, but it is something that I have noticed. I haven't really seen anything that shows Don as being slower, but I do know in some of the older games they did make him a little bit slower, and I think that's really just to balance out the range on his bow. Clearly he has the most range out of any turtle, so in order to offset that, they made him a little bit slower. But it doesn't seem like it's a huge difference, you know. It's noticeable, but we'll see how big of a factor it becomes in gameplay. So right here, there's all kinds of nonsense happening here. So what we really need to do is just focus on one thing at a time. So the first thing that I see here is that Leo is grabbing a foot ninja. It seems like in this game you can grab enemies from a neutral position, whereas previously in Turtles in Time, well, actually let's go a step further. So in the first Turtles arcade game, you can grab people by double tapping the button. So you would have to attack first. So the attack, your strike comes out, and then after the strike, you basically grab onto the foot with your weapon and you fling them, and that's how you get your throw. And you can do that on command. In Turtles in Time, however, the throws and slams are random. They're completely random. You do have control over like your recovery on them, and if in the case of slams, how many times you do the slams, but actually activating them you don't have any control over. But it looks like here Leo just grabs this guy just from a neutral position. In the Super Nintendo version, you can do throws and slams on command, but they both require you to strike the enemy first. So that's one thing I noticed here. I noticed Raph is over here also throwing. Then it looks like Don, if we switch over to looking at Don here. So it looks like Don attacks no one on the left. I can't tell if that's maybe a back attack, or if that's like a special move or something, but he attacks towards the left. There's no one there. And then right after, he swings his bow. And we can't really see a whole lot of what's going on there because they switched the clip, but you can see, like, if you look at the animation of the bow, like, it kind of looks like the swing goes like over here. If you and that's actually quite a bit of range. That's actually like 2 turtles, you know, width of range. So that to me looks like it could be a special move. That might be his primary special, if those come back in the game. And then what we have here, you can see Don running up there. Leo and Mikey both jump. Mikey does a dive kick. So the game has dive kicks. Not really sure what the properties of it are. It looks like it goes more horizontal than the ones in Turtles in Time. There could also be character specific differences. In Turtles in Time, there weren't. Dive kick was universal across the board. In this game, could be differences. Kind of a weird pose there from Mikey, but it does go more horizontal. So I'm just wondering if a dive kick has like similar properties as Turtles in Time, where you can only hit one enemy with it, and once you hit that enemy, the hitbox goes away, and you just go through everyone else. And also dive kicks knock down in Turtles in Time, so you can use dive kicks to try and knock down enemies to basically get them out of play for a brief moment, just to give you some more breathing room. From what I notice here, you can see Bebop's on screen, and he has an attack here that is clearly attacking more than his plane, right? So in the old arcade Turtles games, enemies could only attack when you're on their plane or almost on their plane horizontally. Turtles could too, of course, but in those games, basically your vertical positioning made you pretty much completely safe against enemies. You're completely safe. We're not talking about reshelled, by the way. I don't want to hear anything about reshelled. I know about the vertical changes in that game. We're talking about the classics here. So any kind of, like, if you're on the bottom of the screen, enemies on the top, you can't hit each other. So you're completely safe, they're completely safe. You have to be on the same or almost the same horizontal plane in order to hit each other. Generally speaking, in most scenarios, in Turtles in Time, the turtles will be able to hit sooner than the enemies would, with some exceptions. Clearly, Bebop doesn't care about that, and he's attacking in 8 directions here with his gun. Now, what I'm curious about is if he's the only enemy. Like, I kind of actually find it hard to think that he might be the only enemy in the game that does this. I'm pretty sure they have other enemies that do this as well. I'm just kind of wondering if the Foot Ninja will also have some things that they can do, because otherwise it'll be kind of a similar deal where vertical positioning makes you completely safe. So I am hoping that, you know, there are at least a sufficient number of enemies that can do something like this, even if it's not necessarily in 8 directions. Even if it's just like basic strikes, I'll be fine with that. If certain enemies have moves like that. Not all enemies. I don't want to see the game become nothing but like you can attack as long as you're close. I don't want to see that, because that's part of what I enjoy of the gameplay of these kinds of beat 'em ups, is the fact that you can use that verticality to your advantage. So there's a very interesting dynamic going there, and I don't want to see that removed. So I do hope that certain enemies can do it, but not all of them. Then if we look on the left here, there's a foot that's holding a crate, and he's trying to throw that. There are some enemies in the first Turtles game that do that, but they're kind of like in... It's like they throw it and that's it. So this guy actually walks with it. He walks into a position with the crate, and they don't show him throwing it. They just show him holding it. But in the first Turtles arcade game, the enemies that throw stuff, they don't walk with it. So he's just walking, and I can't really tell if he's like moving and trying to target a turtle, because he just kind of stops in place, and then they just switch to a different scene. But it looks like we might have enemies that, you know, they'll have like throwable weapons like that, and they'll walk and maybe target a certain turtle. So that's cool. So then we have here some kind of office building. The last one was channel 6. Raph is spinning his Sai around. Not sure what that's supposed to be. I don't know if that's like a special move or part of his idle animation. I don't know, but if we are looking, Don's over there attacking no one. But if we look here, if we look at Don, there's a foot that appears right there, and he just grabs that guy. He just grabs him from neutral. So basically, like we saw Leo do this earlier, he just grabbed the guy. So I'm wondering if there's a dedicated grab button, or if maybe you just have to take a neutral position when you're standing near them and the turtle will just grab them automatically. But you can grab them, and it honestly, for beat 'em ups, grabs tend to be pretty powerful, especially if it can affect the enemies nearby. If there's a way to throw or slam them in a way where the enemies surrounding you get hit, then that could be pretty strong. It could be pretty strong. Especially if this game has similar kinds of movement options like Turtles in Time. One of the things that stood out for me in Turtles in Time compared to other beat 'em ups is just the sheer freedom of movement you have with all the different movement options. You did not feel like sluggish and restricted in your movement versus a lot of other beat 'em ups where the character just kind of walks slowly and they jump and they feel like they have 5-ton weights on when they jump and fall. Like in Turtles in Time, you jump super high, you have dive kicks, low jump kicks, you have a run, you can flip, you can slide, you can do all these movement options, dive kick, and it's all like very intuitive, very quick, and it gives you a lot of positioning opportunities, right? So that would be really, really cool. We already see that they have dive kick and run in this game. So that's already a very, very good start. And then if we look over here, let's see. You can see Raph on the bottom left is just, he's starting to do like a basic attack chain. And from what I'm looking at from the hit stun of the Foot Ninja, it looks like they're basing this on the Super Nintendo version of Turtles in Time, which honestly, if you've seen my streams before, you know how I feel about that game. I have a lot of major problems with that game, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if they base this game on concepts of that game, that this is going to be a bad game. It doesn't mean that. The hit stun is definitely reminiscent of Super Nintendo Turtles in Time, where the Foot Ninja, you can basically mash out the strikes and the Foot Ninja basically is locked in hit stun and can't actually counterattack you, which is different from arcade Turtles where they can do that if you time your strikes incorrectly. But then they cut to another clip here. You don't really see much of what Raph is doing. He just gets 2 strikes in and then they switch to this. But I did want to point out here, what's this? Yeah, so right here in the beginning, if we look at Mikey, he's in the middle of some move here, right? He's in the middle of a move here. Now this move looks very much like Honda Headbutt from Street Fighter. I am guessing that this is some kind of special attack, and you can see how he's hitting the foot ninja right there, and then he bounces and spins around and then lands. You can see his land pose there. Then he does what looks like a back attack. Now that back kick actually looks very much like Leo's back attack from Turtles in Time. So I'm going to assume that this is a back attack, especially considering that once it ends, he's still facing the same direction that he was initially facing. So that looks like a back attack. So looks like back attacks are in. I am hoping that they're not just automatic and you can do them manually. In Turtles in Time, back attacks were both. You could do them manually and they were also automatic. In the console port, they allowed you to turn off the automatic and just have the manual, which is actually a very, very good addition. It's one of the few things I actually like about the port. I do hope that they do that for this game too. I think it would be likely, especially since the game has the potential to be updated. And then right there, that was very interesting. So that is not in Turtles in Time. So if you if you just look at Mikey, he walks to the left and then he does what looks to be a backflip, right? And then he looks to do he looks like he's blocking here, right? No one's attacking him. So I'm thinking that this might be like a block button. So you actually have the option of blocking. That's what it looks like. It doesn't really look like it's part of the backflip animation. It might be, but I think it's more likely that this is a block button. So he walks to the left, does a backflip, and that's great because that means that you can actually walk towards an enemy and then backflip and bait an attack. You can bait them into attacking. The backflip actually looks kind of like the backflip that Turtles had in Tournament Fighters, which actually does have a bit of invincibility. So I'm actually curious if this backflip has invincibility or if it's just movement. I kind of hope that it would just be movement. If it does have invincibility, I hope it's just only a little bit, because something like that definitely has the potential to break this style of game. So I hope it's not like too exaggerated if they did decide to give it some kind of invulnerability. And then right after he does this like block animation, he does the headbutt move. So I'm thinking that's his special. And I did notice that on the if you look at the life bars, there's actually a second bar right underneath the life bars that says NP, I think, or it looks like it says NP. I'm not sure what that is, but I would assume it's some kind of special move meter, but Mikey's doesn't seem to go down when he uses his. He used that headbutt twice in this scene, and it doesn't go down at all. But yeah, it looks like he gets a bounce from hitting an enemy, which I take it to mean that move is unsafe when there are too many enemies around. You can do a special like that, and then they kind of cut. The enemy's actually flashing. So if we look at the enemy that he hits, let's see here. That's actually the previous enemy. Okay, so the previous enemy that he hits, well, there are actually two that get hit there. So which one did he hit? He hits two, actually. Oh, wait a minute. I just noticed something. So if we look here, at the very beginning, we see Don throwing an enemy towards Mikey. Mikey does a back attack to the enemy he's already fighting, and then he hits the one that, well, let's see. Was that a back attack? It's kind of hard because Leo kind of gets in the way. Oh, no. Okay. It was hard to tell because Leo is just being useless as usual. So, what's actually happening here is the enemy that Don threw at Mikey is actually hitting the one that Mikey had initially headbutted, which basically confirms my suspicion, where if you grab an enemy, it would be even more useful if you can affect the surrounding enemies, right? By throwing them or slamming them into the other ones. So Don actually throws that enemy into the other one. And then Mikey back attacks the one that Don threw while he's on the ground. So it looks like this game actually has OTG options, which is not something present in Turtles in Time. You cannot OTG enemies in that game. OTG being off the ground, for those who may have never heard that term before, basically means if you knock down an enemy, some games allow you to hit an enemy that's on the ground. So these two enemies go flying to the left, and then one of them starts flashing, which I take it to mean that he was defeated. I can't tell which one that was. I think it might have been the one that Don had thrown towards Mikey. Yeah, it's a little hard to tell because they kind of overlap, but I think it's the one that was thrown by Don and then kicked by Mikey afterward. That's the one that's flashing. Which does also make me think that if you throw enemies, it's not an instant kill. Because if the game allows you to OTG enemies after a throw, then it probably means that you need to do more than just the throw in order to defeat them. Alright, so moving on, what we have here, Mikey automatically grabbing one of the foot ninja, Raph on the ground. Then Mikey gets hit by Rocksteady. He gets popped up. Like directly up, which looks kind of weird. You would think after getting hit by a move like that, he would get knocked the other way, but he gets popped up. Now what I'm wondering if you do the throw animation, or if there's like a slam or something else you can do out of grabbing the opponent. I wonder if you do get some invincibility frames, because in Turtles in Time that is the case. So I'm wondering if that's the case in this game, but it looks like Mikey did nothing. He just stood there holding the guy. Rocksteady hits him. And that's pretty much all they show there. I think this entire clip was literally just to show the existence of Rocksteady in the game. They don't really show anything there. What we have here is actually Leo doing something for once in his life. So it looks like he does some kind of overhead slash. Does an OTG, apparently. That's a very cool animation. I do like that. I do like that animation. I wonder... I can't really tell if that's like a regular strike or a special. It's kind of hard to tell. It does look like it has a little bit of a recovery. Oh, there's a kick that Leo did. And that kick, at least the way the sprite looks, the way this sprite looks is very much like one of the kicks in Turtles in Time. Now, the actual properties of the move, like as far as movement, look completely different, because it actually altered Leo's jump movement. So when Leo jumps here and then starts the kick actually looks like it propels him upward. So he actually gains more height from doing this kick. And then we don't really see a whole lot after that, because this guy blocks the entire screen. Thank you, Mikey, for that. That's one of the throws from Turtles in Time as well. Mikey just kind of tosses the guy towards the screen. As such, even the sprite looks very much like, you know, both Mikey and the Foot Ninja sprite look very much like the ones from Turtles in Time, if you look there at them. And what I'm wondering is, if you can throw like this every single time you grab an enemy, is this the optimal strategy? Because that was one of my main gripes with Turtles in Time on Super Nintendo, is the fact that you have you have various other tools at your disposal, but the fact that you can basically instantly defeat enemies with throws and slams, and you can do them on command like repeatedly, it kind of trivialized the gameplay in that sense, where, oh, if you just throw and slam all the time, you know, that's all you really need to do. You don't really have to mix up your options, versus Turtles in Time Arcade, where you actually have to use your various options, because there's no way to just instantly defeat the enemies throwing and slamming them repeatedly, you know, ad nauseum. So I'm kind of hoping that this does not become the optimal strategy, that there, you know, there's more to it than that. But yeah, at least this confirms here that there's another option from grabbing. It's not just throwing them to the side. And then let's see if any of the turtles are doing so. So if we look at Raph, Raph actually does like what appears to be a slide on the ground after a run. And he actually OTGs the enemy, whereas Leo does not. So the enemy's on the ground, and Raph OTGs that enemy, but not immediately. It looks like he actually had to slide a little bit before the enemy got hit. So my guess is that there may be a point, like a window of time where where the enemy is invincible on the ground, and then maybe when they start to get up from it or something, they're actually vulnerable. It might be something like that. But very clearly, Raph does not OTG him immediately. And then after a while, after Raph is already like really like overlapping his sprite completely, like this doesn't look like a hitbox thing with Raph's slide. That looks to me like it's just that the enemy was unhittable until a certain point in the animation, and then he became hittable, and Raph just happened to be overlapping his hitbox at that point. If we go over to the right side and we take a look at Don, we can see he's doing the backflip, and then he does some kind of kick diagonally. Look at that, look at that. He does a kick and he moves diagonally, and he hits that guy up there near the trash can. So at least one of the turtles has some kind of diagonal move here. The actual sprite itself looks like it's a horizontal move, which makes me think that maybe you can do this move horizontally too. But Don just straight up went diagonally and hit that guy. And then he had some kind of like Mikey's headbutt, like afterward there was like a recovery animation. Don had like a recovery animation after that. So it looks like he would be punishable after hitting with this attack. Then he does what looks to be like an advancing bow thrust. Another advancing bow thrust that has even more range than the first attack, it looks like. And then a third one, and then we don't see anything after that. But we do see Don actually holding the bow overhead as if he's going to do an overhead strike. So he does the diagonal kick, recovery animation, bow thrust, horizontal swing, it looks like, and then overhead holding the bow. So maybe he'll do an overhead strike and actually cover some range above him. So if there's any enemies above him, he might be able to get them with that. And I think that's all there is to see here on this screen. There really, I couldn't really notice anything like as far as the meter is concerned. I didn't really notice the meter being used. So let's go ahead and put this back at full speed again. And now that I've explained what I've personally observed from this trailer, let's go ahead and see if we can make sense of it. Alright, it's got that 8-way attack. We got some OTGs going on. It looks like some of these options are super fast. Like if you look at this backflip into headbutt that Mikey does, geez, that actually looks super fast. It really puts it into perspective when you're watching it in like just full speed. If you look at Don's sequence on the top right over there, it's like boom, 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 like super fast. Like it's crazy. But you can see how they literally showed us less than 20 seconds of gameplay. But there was a lot to actually take in and a lot to observe. Personally, the game so far, I'm definitely excited for the game. Like, and those who have seen me stream Turtles in Time, my 1cc's, you know that I would probably be pretty hard to please. In terms of like a true successor to Turtles in Time arcade, I don't really think that they're gonna top it. Like, I think Turtles in Time arcade is one of those games where, for me personally, it's such, you know, it's just such a hard shoe to fill. Like in terms, it's a very, very tall order to try and surpass that game in terms of level of quality, the gameplay mechanics. Not saying that it's impossible, and I'm certainly open to the idea of future Turtles beat 'em ups, even if they're not exactly the same. I've played some of the later beat 'em ups. I don't get the same satisfaction from them as Turtles in Time. I think the last one that I played that I actually kind of enjoyed, I forget the name of it, but it's one on Game Boy Advance. It was pretty fun. Like it wasn't quite, it didn't have quite the same level of depth, and the mechanics, it just didn't satisfy me as much, but it was pretty fun. So this definitely looks like it's taking a page from Turtles in Time and also throwing in some new stuff in there. I like the backflips. I like some of the moves that I saw the Turtles doing. The Honda headbutt. I like that sequence of strikes Don was doing in the corner. The raft slide looks interesting. That overhead slash Leo did looks interesting. I wonder what kind of properties that might have. That upward kick that gave Leo more like upward momentum so that he was able to actually get a higher jump. That looks interesting. I'm not totally convinced on the hitting vertically, like hitting vertically or diagonally. I'm not totally convinced on that, but we'll see. We'll see how the game shapes up. But yeah, this honestly, I'm definitely looking forward to this. As as someone who spent way too much time dissecting Turtles in Time and coming up with all sorts of ways to make the game harder for myself, this is looking very fun so far. It's looking pretty interesting. Just kind of curious to see what they do with the stages, what they do with the enemies, like what kind of enemy variety they have, because they really just kind of showcased some of what the Turtles can do. They didn't really showcase the enemies a whole lot. I know the game is this is just a reveal trailer. The game's probably still got some time left in the oven before they release it. Who knows if they'll do another trailer or something that shows a little bit more, but so far I think this is the right approach, because I think like as far as like Ninja Turtles games go, they've definitely been in this sort of nebulous area where it's like you have like these particular games that you might love, and then these other games are like, I love. It's like I love the Ninja Turtles, but I can't bring myself to play some of these other games, you know. And the Ninja Turtles have always kind of been a victim of that in terms of the video game options. I just never really found much enjoyment out of the vast majority of them. Um, and that's not to say that you can't do a non beat 'em up style Ninja Turtles game. I think you totally could. Um, but it's like the offerings that we've gotten so far haven't really been what I personally would like to see out of Ninja Turtles games. I don't think it necessarily has to follow the same page as Turtles in Time, but I think if you're going to make a beat 'em up Turtles game, you should learn from Turtles in Time. You should learn from the lessons that that game had to teach. And I think this game is taking a step in the right direction. So that's all I have to say about this trailer and specifically the gameplay footage, because that was the real interesting bit. The intro was fantastic, by the way. I really enjoyed the animation, but we all know the gameplay is where video games shine. So I was very happy to see some of the things I saw in the short amount of gameplay they showed us. So yeah, what do you guys think? Just let me know if you play Turtles in Time. Specifically, if you play Turtles in Time Arcade, I'm very curious to know what you think. And go watch my 1CCs, by the way, if you haven't seen those. You will see, you will probably see why I love the game so much. But yeah, let me know what you think. And I will definitely be streaming this game when it drops at some point. So whenever that is. So I'll look forward to that. And yeah, that's all I got to say. So peace, guys. See you next time.